Revealed, the amazing lives of Victorian London women overcoming the heartwarming opium crisis. In the shadowy corners of Victorian London, Clara hustled through narrow alleyways, her heart a steel trap of determination. With her father's addiction dragging their family down into the murky depths of despair, she carried the weight of a broken home on her slender shoulders. Her small tenement echoed with the sounds of laughter and heartbreak, a din that reflected the thin line they walked between joy and sorrow. Clara had dreams, wild, audacious dreams of liberation for her family and community, forged in the fires of their shared suffering. Each day at the apothecary brought a fresh wave of anguish. As she stocked the shelves, Clara would watch parents, once vibrant, now ghosts of themselves, desperately clutching glass bottles filled with opium. She could see the flickers of hope draining from their eyes, mirroring what she witnessed in her own father, the war hero, now a shadow lost to addiction. The whispers of the drug's promises taunted her, the bloody price paid by families like hers echoing in her mind like a tolling bell. Yet, amid the despair, Clara became the anchor for her younger siblings. They looked up to her with wide eyes, believing she could save them from the darkness. Her smile masked the turmoil that boiled within, but it fueled her unyielding resolve. "We will find a way," she told them, her voice firm despite the quaking in her chest. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. One evening, Clara stood before a gathering of neighbors, her heart pounding like a drum. She spoke of organizing a community event to challenge the very powers feeding off their misery. Some murmured their agreement, while others eyed her with skepticism. "What if it backfires?" they whispered. Yet, Clara could feel the fire in her belly. This was their moment to stand against the tide of opium, their time to fight. Just when she thought she'd stirred the right passions, an unexpected rival emerged, James, a well-spoken man, born into privilege. His challenge stung. He questioned her legitimacy, reminding everyone around them of their station. The poor were no match for the elite. The tension filled the room, heavy and thick, pushing against her small frame. "Can I lead them to redemption?" she mused silently. The stakes had never felt higher. Her siblings needed her, and yet, the page was turning darker. Just when she thought she was rallying the troops, the shadows crept closer, threatening to swallow her plans whole. Clara found herself at a crossroads. A shocking revelation about her father's past, one she'd never dreamed of, threatened to rip her world apart. The echoes of his pain felt sharper than a knife. Could she still fight for other families while holding on to the shards of her own? As she teetered on the precipice of despair and hope, Clara caught a glimpse of the resilience that connected them all. Would she find the strength to shine light in the darkest corners of their lives, or would the weight of all she loved drag her down? The answer lay just beyond the horizon, waiting to unfold. Clara's resolve hardened as she stood before her neighbors, each face illuminated by the flickering light of a lone candle. They were tired, worn down by the oppressive weight of their existence, but together, they could be more than the sum of their struggles. She felt the challenge posed by James pulse through her. He had trapped them in his words, tethering their spirits to the floor like an iron ball to a prisoner's leg. But she couldn't let fear dictate her path. "Look around. We are stronger together," Clara urged, her voice rising above the murmurs. "Each of us has lost something. Let us fight for our lives, our families, and our dignity." She scanned the room for allies and found a flicker of understanding in Mrs. Thompson's eyes, a widow crushed by the weight of 2 lost sons. "It's time to take a stand," Mrs. Thompson whispered, barely audible, but Clara heard it. A shift. The enthusiasm slowly grew as Clara spoke fervently, drawing on shared stories of grief and resolve. The room, once suffocated by doubts, began to breathe again. But doubt lingered, crawling up her spine as James's voice cut through the air again, smooth and mocking. You think that inspiring fairy tales will get the oppressors to listen? They will crush your dreams like the insects they consider us. His words landed like icy daggers, and Clara's heart raced. What if he was right? What if they were merely being naive? No, she felt the energy shift once again. Every great change started with a spark. Look at what happened when the people of Hyde Park spoke out. Clara shot back, surprising herself with the force behind her words. Our voices matter. We matter. As her speech wound to a close, a warmth blossomed in her chest. A spirit of community flickered, lighting the way for many who had been shadows in their world. Kids hugged their mothers a little closer, men exchanged nods of agreement, and women wiped tears from their eyes, igniting the fire Clara had hoped to see. A small wave of applause erupted, tentative at first, but swelling into a determined chorus. She even spotted a few of her siblings at the back, proud smiles lighting their faces. For the first time, Clara saw the belief etched into the tear-streaked cheeks of her neighbors. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore, she was fighting for them all. Suddenly, a loud crash erupted in the back of the room. A window shattered, sending shards of glass glinting everywhere, as panic rippled through the crowd. What was that? Someone shouted. Clara's heart dropped. Had they been discovered? The threat she had felt at the gathering, the shadows creeping back into the periphery, were real. A moment of silence hung in the air as they collectively held their breaths, fear ready to grip them. We have to get out of here, James yelled, his voice a sharp contrast to the growing chaos. But Clara held her ground, images of her father, her family, and all those crushed by dependency flooding her mind. They wouldn't run, they would face this head-on. With fear hammering against her chest, Clara stepped forward. Stay. We fight together. But the doubt lingered as she watched fear splinter the crowd, people looking to escape rather than unite. How could she convince them to stand with her against the tide? With panic bubbling around her, the stakes had never felt higher. Just as Clara braced herself for what may come next, another loud noise echoed outside, more furious than before. Clara's breath caught. What awaited them outside? Would they find allies, or would darkness close in when they stepped out of the shadows? Clara felt the air thicken with uncertainty. Together, she shouted, willing it to echo in their hearts as the door swung open to the unknown. Would they take that step with her? The door creaked open, revealing a swirl of shadows and flickering lamplight. Clara squinted against the sudden light flooding the room, her heart racing like a bird trapped in a cage. She scanned the faces of her neighbors. Were they ready to confront whatever lay beyond? Then she saw it. A figure emerged from the gloom, slightly hunched, but with an unmistakable presence. Old Mr. Fitzpatrick, the town's humble shoemaker, stepped forward. Dozens gathered across town, he said, his voice raspy but steady, cutting through the thick air. They've come for us. It's time to show them who we are. A wave of murmurs surged through the crowd. Clara felt a flicker of hope ignite within her chest. See, she encouraged, turning to them. This is our chance. If Mr. Fitzpatrick knows, then that means others are ready to stand with us. But just as she thought the tide was turning, James's scoffing laughter cut back into the chaos. And what of it? You think you can change their minds with a handful of old men and women in rags? The oppressors won't listen. For a moment, the room felt colder again, the flickering candlelight a reminder of their frail existence. Clara inhaled sharply, trying to push down the panic. We have something they don't: resilience. They may have power, but we have hearts that refuse to give in, voices that won't be silenced. With a nod from Mrs. Thompson, a few others began to step closer to Clara, their fear giving way to determination. Clara could sense the tension melting like snow under spring's sun. She took a step into the light outside, where uncertainty battled with hope. What are we waiting for? She shouted, the crescendo of her courage rising. This is our moment to rise. The temperature outside felt different. The air hummed, filled with the voices of those prepared for change. Clara felt the electric charge of possibility all around her. Each neighbor who stepped up to join her was another thread in a tapestry of strength, weaving their unique stories into a collective vision of hope. Mr. Fitzpatrick raised his hands, gathering their attention as the last of the anxious murmurs quieted. "We've suffered too long," he said, voice steady even in the face of uncertainty. "But together, we are powerful. If we can rally everyone, we can push back against those who think they own our lives." Encouraged by his words, Clara raised her fist, feeling the pulse of the crowd, solidifying around her. "Let us show them our strength. Let us march for our future, our dignity, our families." As she rallied them, a ripple of excitement spread through the group. It was no longer just about her, it was about every single person who felt the chains of oppression binding them. And then, as the crowd began to move, a sharp sound echoed again from the dark streets ahead, louder than before and impossibly close. It felt like the rumble of a storm bearing down. Clara froze momentarily, a chill creeping over her. A shadow darted past, shapes shifting just out of sight. "Stay close," she shouted, unsteadily stepping forward as the fear in their collective heart beat like a war drum. The unknown loomed, but they wouldn't turn back now. Together. Clara's breath quickened as she reached for the first glimmer of hope beyond the shadows. What awaited them? Would they find allies stronger than their fears, or face the wrath of a system unwilling to change? Determined, she gripped her resolve as tightly as she gripped the hands of those beside her, ready to face whatever darkness lay ahead. Would they break through the night? Or would the shadows take them back? As they stepped into the dark streets, Clara could feel the weight of the air pressing down, heavy with uncertainty. The shadows seemed to pulse, alive with a menacing energy. Yet, she also sensed another force, a flicker of unity among her neighbors. Each step they took felt like a line being drawn in the sand, they would not be pushed back. "Who's out there?" someone whispered, a tremor in their voice. Clara raised her chin, squaring her shoulders. "We face them together." Even she could feel the tremor in her own voice, but there was no hiding now. The moment was upon them. As they marched down the cobblestone street, the uneven surface matched the tumult inside her heart. The sound of their footfalls echoed like a drumbeat, steady and relentless. "Remember why we do this," Clara reminded them, looking into the faces surrounding her. Fear had faded into determination in every set of eyes, even James, who had once scoffed, now walked with clenched fists. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, a tall man, silhouetted against the faint glow of the lamplights. Clara's heart raced. "You!" she shouted, the words slicing through the tension. The figure paused, then stepped forward into the light. It was Mr. Thompson, a fellow neighbor known for his quiet resolve. "I heard the gathering," he said, voice confident yet low. "I came to help." The crowd surged, whispers softening the night. "See? We're not alone." Clara felt a surge of hope. "Together, we'll make them listen." The path ahead grew clearer, the threat of the unknown still a tangy taste at the back of her throat. As they marched, Clara couldn't shake the sense that they were not just walking against oppression but were also gathering the dreams of past generations, their ancestors' battles, sacrifices, and the strength they had forged in adversity. Then, a loud crash echoed behind them, followed by shouts. Clara spun around, her heart sinking. A group of men, rough-looking and wild-eyed, were advancing towards them, faces twisted with anger. "You think a bunch of nobodies can change anything?" one of them snarled. "Let them come," Mr. Fitzpatrick shouted, stepping forward defiantly. "We're not nobodies. We're a community." Clara watched as the men faltered, confusion flickering in their eyes. But James shouted back, "We need to get out of here. They won't hesitate to hurt us." Clara felt the panic start to swell again, but she pushed against it. This was their moment, now or never. "Together," she urged, her voice rising above the chaos. "We've faced worse. They want us afraid, but we are strong. Stand your ground." With her pulse racing, she pressed forward, rallying their spirits. The crowd followed her lead, shaking off the doubt that threatened to conquer them, stepping forward as a wall of defiance. Clara felt the surge of their combined energy, and it steadied her. As they linked arms, Clara noticed something flicker in an ally to their left, a light. It was small but steady. A voice called out from the shadows, "You're not alone. We're with you." Other figures began emerging, allies who had been waiting for this very moment. Clara's heart swelled, they were multiplying. But just as hope began to cascade through her like a bomb, an ominous figure appeared near the flickering light, a cloaked figure, face obscured, waving them over. "Come." The figure beckoned, blood pounding in Clara's ears. Was this a trap, or salvation? Which path do we take? She wondered, feeling the weight of destiny on her shoulders. With the danger just ahead, the choice hung dangerously close. Would they trust this stranger, or face down the wrath of the men behind them? The crowd murmured, movement quivering with uncertainty contrasting with the fire of their newfound purpose. Clara gripped the hands beside her tightly, feeling the same pulse of unity that had ignited hope earlier. Eyes darting from the advancing men to the mysterious figure, she knew the path chosen now would shape their future. What would she decide? What would they find on the other side? The tension hung thick in the air, a palpable force that warred against Clara's rising hope. As shadows shifted around them, she held her breath, weighing the cloaked figure's invitation against the snarling voices behind. "Clara, we should go." James gripped her arm. His fear was sharp, a blade cutting through her resolve. "They'll catch us if we don't move." But the cloaked figure's presence was magnetic. "Come with me, and you will find answers," it urged, voice smooth like silk yet somehow commanding. Clara longed for direction, a compass to guide them through the chaos. "Wait," she called out, raising her hand to still the crowd's restlessness. They needed to show strength, they needed to decide together. "Let us hear what they have to say. We're stronger in numbers." As she spoke, the crowd shifted, uncertainty playing across their expressions. Clara caught the glint of fear in some eyes, but others seemed drawn to the figure. It was a fragile balance, like a tightrope walk over an abyss. "Clara." James's voice was a whisper of desperation. "What if it's a trick? We can't just trust a stranger. We've come too far to turn back now." She insisted, her voice unwavering. Memories flashed through her mind, the sacrifices of those before her, the warmth of the community that had nurtured her spirit. They would not flee. Together. She shouted again, louder this time, the words bouncing back to her from the walls of the narrow street. Her rallying cry ignited a flicker in some of her neighbors, glimmers of resolve sparking amongst worry. The cloaked figure stepped forward, revealing just enough of its face for Clara to see the tension etched into the skin around its eyes. "Your courage is commendable," it said, voice soothing. "But fear is a poison. Trust is the antidote." Clara felt a surge of bravery. "Then we trust. We will follow you." She looked around, searching for affirmation, and met the gaze of Mr. Thompson. He nodded, a small sign that warmed her heart. "Are you with us?" Clara beckoned, taking a leap of faith. She lifted a hand towards the enigmatic figure. Faces hardened, fear still lurking, but determination began to seep through the cracks. One by one, hands rose, arms linking together not just for stability but for mutual understanding. The wild-eyed men hesitated, confusion rippling through their ranks. They hadn't anticipated this unity and trust in the face of intimidation. As Clara took the first step forward, she felt the collective heartbeat of the crowd thrumming in sync with her own. The cloaked figure gestured, and they began to move toward the light, the shadows shrinking behind them. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, and perhaps not just from their pursuers. There was a deeper force at play, one that seemed to know each of their fears and weaknesses. But with every step, she felt lighter, as if the burdens of doubt were shed like dead weight. Each voice behind her amplified their power, transforming the echoes of trepidation into roars of resolve. Trust, she whispered to herself, letting the words settle in her bones. Uncertainty still danced at the edges, but worry transformed into exhilaration. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, Clara felt that they had a chance. What awaited them in the flickering light? As they neared the entrance to the alley, Clara turned back, glancing at the angry figures who had once instilled fear in her. This was more than a moment, it was a declaration. "We will not be silenced," she yelled, the conviction charging through her voice. The crowd echoed her sentiment, raising their fists to the sky as they stepped into the light. But what awaited them? Was it freedom, or a deeper darkness? Clara's heart pounded. The moment of transformation was coming, but at what cost? The light flooded over them like a warm tide, washing away the darkness that had clung to their backs. Clara squinted, trying to gauge what lay ahead. The cloaked figure moved with a purpose, leading them away from the chaos they had escaped and into a narrow path lined with flickering lanterns. Eyes brightened, reflecting a mix of curiosity and cautious optimism. There was a collective energy in the air, a sense of possibility that filled their lungs and pushed out a little of the fear. Clara felt her heart surge. Her belief was radiating outward, igniting something in those around her. "Stick close," the figure instructed, glancing back. "We're entering a sanctuary of sorts. Here, you will be safe for now." "Safe?" James's voice trembled as he walked alongside Clara. "We don't even know who that is." "True," she admitted, determination tightening her grip on his hand, "but we can't let our doubts cage us forever. The fear we felt back there, it can't be the end of our story." They walked in silence, the echoes of their footsteps dampened by the cobblestones beneath them. Little by little, Clara felt the burden of what was left behind lighten, the chaos fading behind her like a distant storm. "Why are we here?" someone in the crowd finally asked, a tremor of uncertainty creeping into their voice. It broke the fragile atmosphere, exposing the lingering doubt they shared. "Answers are rarely given without questions first," the cloaked figure replied, turning to meet their gazes in the waning light. "You are warriors in your own right, you've already fought your battle against fear. This is merely the next step." As they stepped into a small courtyard, Clara saw a gathering of individuals, men and women, each marked with the same determination that coursed through her veins. They wore clothing of varied styles and colors, a patchwork quilt of disparate lives woven together. "Welcome," an older woman with wild hair spoke, stepping forward. "You made it through the darkness. Congratulations. But understand this, to rebuild, to find true freedom, requires sacrifice." "What sacrifice?" James blurted out, his voice bouncing off the walls that surrounded them. Clara could feel the room's atmosphere shift, anticipation hung thick. She took a breath, trying to calm the storm brewing inside her. "Sacrifice of comfort, of ignorance. There might be choices you don't want to face and truths that will shatter your heart. But in that journey lies your strength." Her words landed heavily, and Clara felt a shudder ripple through the crowd. Was she ready for that? Would they all be? Suddenly, a murmur rose among the group, a ripple of worry threading through the faces around her. An argument had broken out, voices clashing and overlapping. Clara could barely catch the words, but the tension was crystal clear. There was division brewing just when she thought they had found safety. "Enough!" Clara exclaimed, the fire igniting within her. "We've fought against fear already, let us not let it divide us again." "But what do we do?" Mr. Thompson asked, desperation marbling his voice. Clara's mind raced. There was no clear answer, just 1,000 unspoken fears lurking beneath the surface. She took a step forward, feeling the weight of their hopes and needs pressing against her. "We decide as a community. Together." But in that moment of unity, shadows flickered at the edges of her mind. Could they really achieve solidarity? Or was this just another illusion, one step forward followed by 2 steps back? As Clara opened her mouth to speak, a sudden commotion erupted at the edge of the courtyard. A figure darted into view, breathless and frantic. "They're coming. We have to hurry." Panic shot through the group, a wave of fear crashing against the fragile constructs they'd just begun to build. Clara's heart raced. Would they stand and fight again, or would this be their undoing? They had sought answers, but now the question changed: how much were they willing to sacrifice for freedom? Clara's breath caught in her throat, the urgency of their situation sharp and clear. What awaited them now? Would they crumble under pressure, or find a way to rise despite the storm? Clara's heart pounded as the panic spread like wildfire among them. She could see fear etched on the faces of those around her, shadows of uncertainty clouding the newfound hope they had just begun to grasp. The cloaked figure stepping forward, bracing for the storm that was brewing. "Listen to me," the figure commanded, voice steady amidst the chaos. "We need to gather together. If we stand united, they won't stand a chance." The crowd hushed, eyes darting between the figure and the shadows creeping closer, their anxiety palpable, almost deafening. Clara could feel the energy shift, coiling tight like a spring, ready to snap. The idea of flight flickered in the minds of many, but she sensed something deeper, an urge for solidarity. "Hurry," the cloaked figure urged, gesturing toward a narrow entrance off the courtyard. "This way, quickly." Clara grasped James's hand tighter. "We need to go, now." Her voice was firm, cutting through the fear like a lifeline. She started moving toward the entrance, pulling him along as others began to follow suit, hearts pounding in sync with hers. They rushed through the archway, joining a corridor that felt like the belly of a beast, dark and musty yet strangely alive. The glow of lanterns flickered dimly, casting long shadows that danced along the walls, mocking their haste. "Where does this lead?" someone asked, breathless and uncertain, a hint of dread creeping back into the air. "To safety, hopefully," the cloaked figure replied, glancing back with reassurance. "Just trust me." As they pressed deeper into the corridors, a sudden, shocking sound erupted from behind them, a loud crash, followed by a series of hurried footsteps. Clara's blood ran cold. Whatever was hunting them was close. "We don't have much time," the man urged, quickening his pace. Everyone followed, but Clara noticed hesitation creeping back into James's eyes. "What if they catch us?" he whispered, fear smothering him like a heavy blanket. Clara faced him, determination flickering in her gaze. "We can't think like that. We need to focus on moving forward. Together." The corridors twisted and turned, the air growing thicker with each step. They finally reached a door at the end of the hall. The cloaked figure pushed it open, revealing a dimly lit room stacked with crates and old furniture. "In here. Quickly." As they scrambled inside, Clara turned to look back. Shadows loomed at the entrance, figures rushing into the corridor, but they couldn't see her yet. She felt a jolt of fear but also a glimmer of hope. They were hiding, but how long could they remain unseen? They huddled together in the cramped space, hearts racing, muffled breaths blending into a chorus of anxiety. Clara could sense the weight of their fear. She met James's gaze, the connection fueling her inner resolve. They needed each other now more than ever. "Listen," the cloaked figure spoke softly, trying to calm the group. "These are dark times, but we fight for something greater. Your lives, your futures, they matter. No one can take that from you." A ripple of determination surged through Clara's chest. They needed to believe in that future, even when it felt unattainable. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted at the door, a deep thrumming that rattled through the room. Clara's breath hitched. Were they going to break through? Would their fight be in vain? "Stay quiet," whispered the figure, eyes wide, scanning the room. Clara's heart raced, not just from fear, but from the need for connection, for strength. They had felt the sting of sacrifice already, but what sacrifices awaited them now? Would they rise together, or be swallowed by the darkness threatening to envelop them? Just then, the door creaked open ever so slightly, a sharp light breaking through the darkness. Someone stepped inside, a familiar face, eyes filled with urgency and desperation. "Clara! James!" the newcomer shouted. "You won't believe what I've found. We may have a chance yet." What was this chance? Was it a way out, or another step into the unknown? Clara barely had time to process the urgency in the newcomer's voice before the door swung open wider. Light flooded the room, illuminating frightened faces that were desperate for hope and escape. The cloaked figure stepped aside, allowing the figure to enter fully. Clara squinted against the bright illumination, her heart still racing from the earlier panic. Who are you?" someone in the group stammered, voice trembling. "Names don't matter now," the newcomer replied, urgency thick in their tone. "What matters is what I have, an escape route that leads us out of this chaos." The unease that hung thick in the air seemed to lift slightly, replaced by a cautious curiosity. Clara felt a stirring inside her, a sense of both dread and relief. They had been hiding, evading danger in a world that felt more like a nightmare than reality. The thought of a possible way out urged her forward as she fixed her gaze on the newcomer. "What do you mean?" Clara pressed, her voice shaking slightly. "How do we get out?" The newcomer took a breath, their eyes widening as they scanned the huddled group. "There's a tunnel hidden beneath the old archway. It leads to a service exit far from here. But we have to move fast. They're not far behind us." A collective gasp broke through the group. Clara could sense the weight of decision crashing down on them. It was as if time paused, dangling them on the edge of a precipice. They could feel the danger creeping closer, the shadows lurking beyond the light, and yet a flicker of hope glimmered enticingly. "Are we going to trust this?" James's voice cut through the silence, uncertainty lacing his words. Clara turned to him, feeling that familiar tug in her chest. The fear in his expression reflected her own, but deep down, she knew they couldn't stay here. "We have to take the chance, James," she whispered, her voice steadier this time. "We can't let fear decide our fate. We need to be brave." The cloaked figure nodded in agreement, stepping forward to address the group. "Clara is right. We can't allow fear to rule us. It's our strength together that will keep us alive. We go now." Clara took a deep breath, squeezing James's hand tighter as she swallowed her fear. She felt the energy shift again, but this time it was electric, charged with possibility. They were choosing to face the danger head-on rather than cower in the shadows. "Follow me." The newcomer beckoned, leading the way. They slipped into the corridor, moving swiftly yet cautiously. Each step felt loaded with suspense, the echo of hurried footsteps thrumming behind them like a heartbeat. Clara quickened her pace, digging deep to maintain her focus. As they approached the archway, the tension in the air thickened again. Clara could hear distant voices, growing louder, mingling with the sounds of pursuit. Time was slipping through their fingers like sand, and they needed to act quickly. "Here!" the newcomer called. They moved aside a pile of debris to reveal a hidden doorway, just wide enough for them to squeeze through. Clara could see darkness beyond, leading into the unknown. They lined up, hearts pounding in unity as they waited. One by one, they slipped through the gap, the hidden tunnel embraced them, shrouding their departure from the clutches of danger. The darkness enveloped Clara, hurried breaths filling the air. As they edged deeper into the passage, she felt a sudden sense of urgency. This was it, a chance to escape, but what might lie ahead? "Stay close," the cloaked figure warned. Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the journey was just beginning. They may have escaped the immediate threat, but deep within, an unsettling question lingered. What awaited them at the end of this tunnel? As they pressed on, an echo of footsteps surged behind them once more, louder and more threatening. Fear clawed at Clara's insides. The darkness was thickening, but so was their resolve. Could they truly outrun the danger that still loomed? Just then, as they reached the tunnel's end, a glimmer of light flickered ahead. Clara's breath quickened, anticipation battling with fear. What would they find outside? She turned to James, their eyes locking with an urgency that spoke more than words. Are you ready? But before he could answer, a deafening crash echoed behind them, reverberating through the tunnel, and in that moment, everything about their escape hung in the balance. The crash echoed like thunder, shaking the very ground beneath Clara's feet. In that instant, everything shifted. The flickering light ahead seemed both a beacon and a trap, promising safety while also threatening to reveal them to whatever was chasing them. She felt James step closer, their fingers intertwined, grounding her as panic began to swell once more. Move. The cloaked figure urged, sensing the urgency. We have to get to the light. With no second thoughts, Clara took a deep breath and plunged forward. The narrow passageway narrowed further, forcing the group to press close together. The darkness engulfed them, a suffocating cloak that whispered fears and doubts in Clara's ear, a cacophony of voices that warned of failure. Each step felt heavier than the last, but Clara couldn't let fear overwhelm her. Keep going, she urged, her voice breaking through the silence as they hurried on toward the light. Behind them, the sound of crashing echoed again, louder this time. It was a reminder that their pursuers were relentless. They emerged into a small, dimly lit chamber at the end of the tunnel. The walls were damp, crumbling, and lined with faded posters. A narrow opening led back outside, where the faintest hint of twilight was visible. Clara's heart raced at the small escape. It felt like a tiny ember in the dark night. It's just over there. The newcomer pointed, hand trembling as they motioned toward the door. Hurry, before they find us. Clara didn't need to be told twice. She pushed forward, heart pounding in her chest, and slid through the opening. The cool evening air washed over her, filling her lungs with the sweet taste of freedom. But as she stepped out into the night, a sense of foreboding settled in her gut. They found themselves in an alley, surrounded by buildings that stood like silent sentinels. The streets were eerily quiet, bathed in the glow of dim street lamps. Clara turned to look back at the tunnel entrance, her heart still drumming in her chest. The newcomer joined her, eyes darting as they scanned the area. Are we safe? Clara whispered, a knot of tension clawing at her throat. For now, the newcomer replied, but Clara could hear the uncertainty in their voice. We need to find cover and regroup. The danger isn't far behind. Just then, the stillness was shattered by shouts, angry voices drawing closer. Clara's heart sank as she realized they hadn't escaped yet. We need to move, she urged, taking James's hand once more. They dashed down the alley, fear propelling them faster. Clara felt alive, her senses heightened as adrenaline kicked in, but she was equally acutely aware of the danger that lingered just behind them. A decision loomed in her mind: where to go next? Should they leave the safety of the shadows and head toward the busy street, where other people could protect them? Or stay hidden in the alleys, where they risked losing their pursuers but drew closer to the unknown? Over there. James pointed to a darkened doorway flanked by an old wooden sign that swayed in the wind. Clara hesitated, torn between the prospect of safety and the fear of entering yet another unknown place. The sound of pursuers drew nearer, their voices echoed angrily through the dimly lit streets. Desperation surged through Clara. She took a deep breath, the weight of the moment crashing down again. Let us go. The group darted toward the doorway, urgency and fear blending into a singular drive. They pushed inside, slipping into the darkness just as footsteps rounded the corner, their hearts thundering in synchronized fear. As the door slammed shut behind them, Clara could barely make out the shapes around her. What now? She whispered, feeling the heavy silence of her choices press in on her from all sides. And just as she gathered her thoughts, a voice pierced the darkness from deep within the shadows. Welcome to the refuge, but be warned, nothing is as it seems here. What awaited Clara and the group in this unexpected refuge? Would this be the safety they craved, or another tangled web of uncertainty? Clara stood still, heart racing, as the last echoes of their frantic escape faded away, replaced by the thick silence of the room. The mysterious voice had sent chills down her spine, and her grip tightened around James's hand. The shadows loomed large around them, a swirling backdrop of uncertainty. Who are you? Clara startled out loud, the question bursting forth from her lips like a lifeline. The tension in the room felt heavy, palpable. She felt the eyes of her neighbors darting toward the source of the voice, a mix of hope and fear filling every corner. Emerging from the darkness, an older woman stepped forward, her face almost hidden beneath a frayed shawl, eyes sharp as they scanned the group. "I'm Eleanor," she said, her voice steady yet warm. "And this is a refuge for those brave enough to seek change." "Change," James echoed, skepticism dripping from his tone. "What kind of change?" "We come from danger, we don't want to walk into another trap." Eleanor raised a brow, unfazed. "What do you think you want? Safety? Or the strength to fight back?" At her words, Clara felt a spark ignite within her. She looked around at her neighbors, their faces mottled with confusion and trepidation. They had bravely fought through the fear to reach this point. But could they truly find strength here? Do we have to sacrifice ourselves to reclaim our lives? Clara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor stepped closer, the corners of her mouth lifting. "Sacrifices are inevitable in the face of change. But remember, strength is derived from love, desperation, and courage. You must face your fears if you wish to reclaim your freedom." Clara's breath caught in her throat. The journey they had undertaken was monumental, but the thought of facing deeper fears loomed devastatingly large. Suddenly, she felt indescribably vulnerable and utterly resolved. "We have faced fear already," she found her voice again, gaining momentum. "We need to stand together. Our true strength lies in each other. We won't lose hope." Around the room, murmurs of agreement sparked like scattered embers. James nodded, heart softening. He stepped forward, fear replaced with a dawning understanding, eyes locked on Clara. "You're right. We've been running, but as long as we're together, we can be the voices that demand change." Eleanor's face softened. "There's a reason you have arrived here. Many who seek refuge are bound by their stories, threads of shared suffering that connect communities. And together, you possess the power to create a ripple. Let us do it." Someone shouted from the back. "Mrs. Thompson." Clara beamed at her support, it ignited something strong in the room. More voices chimed in fervent, passionate, the sheer humanity of their history rallying them forward. "Then we unite," Clara urged, raising her hands with resolve. "We fight for our families. For the lives stolen by opium and fear. We will stand. We will rise." A roar of agreement swelled in the small room, thundering off the walls with raw strength. Clara felt it surge through her, each voice stitching together the rags of their past. Eleanor stepped back, observing in awe. "Tomorrow, we will organize. We'll reach the community and ignite their spirits. But first, you must rest. You've all faced so much." As they settled into the refuge, a gentle wave of exhaustion washed over Clara. She leaned against the wall, grateful for the people surrounding her. As her eyes fluttered shut for the briefest moment, the fear that had gripped her heart loosened its hold, replaced by a flickering flame of hope. The next day arrived like a new dawn. When the rays of sunlight filtered through gaps in the old walls, Clara gathered her neighbors, and they prepared for the day ahead. The air buzzed with purpose and promise, filled with murmurs of what was to come. "Together, we can make them listen," Clara reiterated, her determination palpable. With each step they took into the bustling streets, they felt the warmth of solidarity, the weight of their mission behind them. As they marched, shouting out their cries for justice, Clara caught sight of the familiar faces of her neighbors. Mrs. Thompson, James, Mr. Fitzpatrick, every one of them woven tightly together in unwavering unity. They were no longer shadows hiding in the dark, they were warriors, armed with hope and love for one another, ready to challenge the tides of despair. Suddenly, Clara's heart swelled as she spotted the crowd gathering around them, former strangers standing alongside her neighbors, drawn by the courage radiating from the group. "Together," she shouted again, the energy transforming and electrifying. "Now is our time. And as those chants soared high, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, Clara felt the pulse of life returning, igniting a movement against the shadows. They were becoming the change, for themselves, for their families, for every voice that had been trampled before. Victory no longer felt out of reach, it was dawning. This was not just a fight, it was a celebration of strength, compassion, and resilience, echoing through the streets of Victorian London, a legacy they would leave behind. And in Clara's heart, a new fire was born, the knowledge that together they could bend the arc of their history, one stride at a time. Now is your moment to join this journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and feelings about this incredible transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this fight for change. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the urgency of supporting this channel through these actions.